Hey there, hi there, ho there, hello there, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we bring you the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics. And certainly the two sports that we will be discussing today are very exciting right now. Volleyball, of course, getting ready to play tomorrow for the national championship, and women's basketball making a trip down to Memphis. As Jeff and I were discussing earlier, it isn't Memphis State, it's the University of Memphis. And don't call them Memphis State, they get upset about that. It's a fake state, as Jeff would say. But anyway, got a crew of three in here today. I think Case just jumped on. Did you not, sir?
Made it.
Okay, yeah, he
Yeah,
snuck in
just
under the wire. I saw the other screen pop up, and I'm going, that must be Case.
yep.
So, Case and Jeff on board with us, and as we'd like to uh, do at the start of the show, kind of catch up with the guys and see how their week has gone. And Jeff was telling me some interesting things about things going on with his job search. So, what's new with you, bub?
Yeah, I've got a recruiter screen for a position tomorrow afternoon. That's the very first step of any sort of job acquisition, and at least in the tech field. I don't know beyond tech what it's like, but having been in that field all my life. But yeah, this is the first. The recruiter at the company basically gets in contact and says, "Hey, are you not like a total fraud? Okay, well then we'll pass you on to the hiring manager and not waste their time." So it's just a very first check to like, oh, this is we're hiring for a principal security network engineer who needs 10 years of experience. Oh, you're just out of college? Yeah, no, we're gonna filter you out now. So it's that sort of check. So I don't think I'll have too much trouble passing it. I don't want to get cocky, but so
Well, and as the candidate, it's also an opportunity for you to
yeah.
kind of be like, am I? You kind of tune yourself to recruiter speak when they're talking about the position. You're like, I don't know if this is really what you're making it out to be.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. I always tell people, anytime anybody asks me about career advice or hiring advice or whatever, I always say all interviews are two-way streets, right? You're
Oh yeah.
interviewing the company or organization just as much as they're interviewing you, because they may, company may come through and say, "Hey, we think you'd be great. We're going to offer you the job," and you may decide, "No, it's not for me. I'm not interested in that." And that's perfectly valid. And I think any organization that doesn't recognize that is kind of a red flag, honestly. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I had an interview. This was a couple of years ago, and talking to the recruiter and discussing the position. It's like, yeah, 20% travel. So I'm thinking, 2 days every 2 weeks. It's not terrible. That's something I'm pretty used to.
Right.
Uh, and then in the interviews, interview discussions with the company, they're like, yeah, I think one of the first projects you'll be working on is like 2 week facility assessment at a at a location. You'll be there, but the government won't pay for weekends, so you'd either have to cover your own weekend or travel both weeks. And it's like, what? Hang on,
Mm,
what in the world is going on here? this
yeah,
is this is not what I was expecting. So
that's a
the,
little
the
problematic.
well,
Yeah.
the alternate or the like follow on to that is like, well, if it's 20% travel and I just did 2 weeks straight travel, that just means I'm sitting at my computer for the
For
next
2 months.
right. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and in this case, this is actually an organization I know fairly well. The past three positions I've been in have been customers of this organization. So I've been in contact with a couple of the folks that kind of work in this area of the company already. I know them. I've been friendly with them, professional friendship for several years. They were both out at this conference I went out to out in November in Denver. So they were both there. I talked to him about it and actually talked to him about the position. So I kind of was looking at it. So um, yeah, it's a first step. We'll see where it goes. I'm not in any sort of urgent panic yet. So I got a while.
Sometimes the first step is the first step of success. So
Yeah.
let's hope that yours is. I can remember years ago when I was a manager for a grocery store, so to speak, fast, gas, groceries, and goods kind of convenience type store. And I used to have to hire cashiers quite frequently.
Mhm.
I had a very novel approach to that. I'm saying, so you know how to work a cash register? That's great. Do you know how to put things on shelves? Excellent. Would you object to going out into the parking lot and putting down oil dry and sweeping? Great. Okay. Let's try you on a shift then and see how you do. Come on in and see what you think of it. And that was the best way for me to kind of weed people out because I could get a very good read from our existing cashier after the first presumptuous
Yeah.
question. "Hey, you're not hiring this one to replace me, are you? No, no, no. You're just training this one." And they would usually give me a very good idea of what they thought this
Yeah.
person's skills would be, and
Yeah.
it
And like
helps.
a couple of jobs ago, when I was interviewing for that, they actually flew me out to Vancouver, which is where one of their offices was. And I arrive in the office in the late morning, and what we had arranged is to go out for all the people in the office to go out to lunch, and then go to lunch, and then come back and do all the interviews in the office. And so we did that. I arrived in the office, met a bunch of people that were going to be my coworkers, and then we walked down a couple blocks to a place to go to lunch and had lunch. And on the way back, one of the guys was we were walking along, and he looked at me. He goes, "You realize that was part of the interview, right?" And I went, "Oh yeah." I figured as soon as I stepped off the elevator the interview, the overall process of interviewing starts. It's
Did they grade you on what you ordered?
no, but the interactions with the
Sure.
potential
Yeah.
coworkers, right? I mean, it's basically
Yeah.
like a team interview at that point.
Very important thing. Yes.
Yeah,
How does he get along with this in a social setting? Yes.
yeah. I've
Agreed.
heard of companies that will fly candidates out to a place and provide them transportation from the airport, and then the HR and hiring manager or whatever will talk to the person that was the driver.
Yeah, I've heard of that too.
Yeah, to say,
Or
hey,
you you
how did they treat you, right?
or
How did
you intentionally go to a meal and see how
yeah,
they treat the wait staff.
right, yeah, all of that, s- you know. Which is,
It,
I mean, I actually think that's a pretty good way to handle things. You get a
oh,
good
yeah.
read on people's culture that way.
A comprehensive view of the prospective employee,
Yeah.
as they would say.
Yep.
And so, best of luck to you.
Oh, yeah.
As you said, one step forward, take another one, and say, "Hey, look, Ma, I'm walking." It'll be a good thing for you. Case in the house also. Case, what's it's been kind of a blur of television events lately. Your thoughts on what you've seen so far with the Cardinals here in this volleyball world?
No, well, the volleyball's been great to watch. The basketball, not so much.
Not so much. No, not so much.
um, yeah, I mean Thursday night, and we'll talk a ton more about it. But I think what may have been the most incredible um, for me was, you're up against a Thursday night football game. Um, Everybody is kind of in the world of preparing for the first home playoff games of the new 12-team college football playoff era. You're in the throes of basketball season, and the vast majority of people that I follow, not just local people, but a ton of just sports figures that I follow, as far as the media coverage landscape, they were all watching volleyball.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about this Final Four, these huge matches, and we kind of joke sometimes about the lack of parity in women's basketball because it would always be the number one seeds that make it to the Final Four. And nobody was really talking about that being a lack of parity in this women's volleyball season, just that the cream of the crop rose to the top. And all four number one seeds made it and produced two very entertaining matches.
Indeed, they did.
I did see somebody on Blue Sky say that this shows a lack of parity in volleyball, and I said, oh, I don't know about that. I think if you look at the matches leading up to this, and some of these teams have gone through, you'll see that there's some pretty good, uh, parody level of play here. And I signed it, little dash dash space, a Louisville fan looking nervously at you and I.
Well, and I mean, one side of the Final Four has never won a national championship. One of those
Yeah.
two teams has never been to a national championship, but those two teams have been to 4 straight Elite Eights, and in Pitt's case, 4 straight Final Fours.
Yeah.
I
Which is
mean,
absolutely impressive accomplishment.
right? But I mean, like, I don't
Yeah.
for people for anyone saying that it's a lack of parity because it was the number 1 seeds, that just shows a lack of
Understanding of the
knowledge of the
of the
game,
college
right.
volleyball landscape. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We certainly had a good time. We did not stay for the second contest. It was already getting kind of late, and I had an
Yeah.
early appointment in the morning. And
I needed to keep my heart rate in check. I was like, I can't turn this on. I'm going to bed.
but we,
As
I mean,
soon
it
as
didn't
Louisville
end.
ended, I was like, "Off, thank you."
Yeah, it didn't end until like almost 1 o'clock. I think it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, it was late. I came back home, dropped my mother off, and went back downtown. A bunch of folks were meeting up at O'Shea's, which is the fan headquarters for the UofL Final Four, and we're watching, mostly families and stuff. But we're watching the final match. I stayed there until it was over, and I didn't get home till 1:30 maybe. So it was.
So you didn't go back in. You just went
Yeah,
back.
went to O'Shea's.
You just
Yeah.
went back next door.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was fun.
Well, the post game in itself, when they had the interviews with the winning and losing team in the Louisville contest, of course, the cards were brought out first, as they've been doing lately. It used to be you always brought out the losing team first, I can remember. But now the trend seems to be, let's bring out the winning team first in the post game press conferences, and then the losing team. And
Yeah, I know in the past the NCAA has had a policy where they have like a cool down period, particularly for the losing team, to kind of let their emotions settle a little bit before they have to face media and stuff. So I don't know if it's a product of that. I don't know if they still really do that or not, but I remember they used to years ago.
yeah, in any event, it is the way it broke down. And of course, the cards were very excited and very happy to be up there. And consequently, that was kind of tough to sit through that interview there with Pitt, because they
Yeah.
were obviously just a little bit disappointed of it.
Sure. I mean, 4 straight years of losing in the Final Four.
You know, and it's
Yeah.
as much as I kind of dislike some of the players on the Pitt team, my heart did kind of go out to, and Dan Fisher too, of course, but
Not a big
my
fan,
heart
but
did go out to kind of go out.
he's good. He's a good coach. I'm just not a fan.
He's definitely a very good technical coach. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know about his people skills, but
Well, his players love him. So
Yeah,
that's just what
there's
I
gotta be-
understand.
there's
We'll talk
got to
about
be
mine.
something going on here then. But
Yeah.
We'll talk about my opinion of his coaching here when we get into the match.
yeah, we'll get
Yeah,
into we'll get into volleyball in mass here in just in a little bit. Let's go ahead and get the hoops out of the way here, if we shall. A little bit of basketball action going on actually today for the University of Louisville women's basketball squad, as they will be going down to that famous city on the Mississippi, Memphis. That's right. Not to play Memphis State. No, to play the University of Memphis. Let us be correct in our identification of the school.
So I understand that we always make fun of them in this way, right? But I want to chime in and say that it was 2023. So in February of last year, a coworker and I went down. We went to Memphis for work. We were there for a couple of days. It was when like that ice storm kind of swept across the Mid-South. And so Memphis was shut down. Like we got there, we were like one of the last flights in. The architects that were supposed to meet us there ended up not making it. The whole city was shut down, which was kind of nice because we were like going to a VA hospital to do some field work, and the VA was closed. Like it's open for emergency services, but like all the regular appointments were canceled. But so there's nothing to do in the city. And there was a Grizzlies game one of the nights we were there. We're like, well, we'll go because they were still having a game. Tickets were super cheap because nobody could go. There was, I think like 2,000 people there at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But we sat next to this older guy who had been there forever, goes to all the games, goes to all the Memphis games, and he referred to them as Memphis State,
That's awesome.
just in
I love it.
conversation, because that's what they were to him as he was, growing up. He's always been in Memphis, so that was it. And so I still don't call them that because that's not their name, but there are still people that do. Just like people are going to refer to Cardinal Stadium as Papa John's all forever.
Oh yeah, like
Like
I
it was
do.
the name for 12 years or whatever. It's
I
you
still
can't
slip up and do it.
you
Yeah.
can't just turn it
Yeah.
off.
Because Cardinal Stadium to me represents
Was
the
old
old
Cardinal
Cardinal
Stadium, yeah.
Stadium at the fairgrounds. Yeah,
Yeah. That
Uh,
doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. Despite there still being
it's
signage.
it's a big parking area now.
Yeah.
That's
Despite the
what-
signs on Ring Road still saying Cardinal Stadium with arrows. I'm like, really?
let's see, where is it? Where did it go?
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, the Cards will be taking on the University of Memphis at 5 p.m. This is in the FedEx Forum. Some great memories I have of the FedEx Forum. Oh my goodness! And it'll be a broadcast on ESPNU. So I guess with it being, of course, Saturday and other events going on, that 1 and 2 on ESPN were not available. But ESPNU is still good. Most people have that.
Yeah, it's
And
one of the linear channels. It's
I mean,
on,
if you look at the
Yeah.
matchup, it's kind of amazing that we got ESPNU.
well, it's certainly
is-
a Cardinal team that's struggling here.
This
And
is
I
an
think,
ESPN plus game if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, this one probably could have gone to the ACC Network Extra, but except it's in Memphis. But 6-5 for the Cards. Memphis considerably worse.
They're
Not a
not-
good
They're
season.
not good.
They're just having a very, very tough season, as one would say. And we're used to Memphis being fairly good in most sports. Women's basketball, they've had some very, very good teams, but right now, no, not so much for them. It's not happening. And of course, on ESPN, you usually get somebody from the home school. Angel Gray will be doing the play-by-play, and Helen Williams will be the analyst. So if you want to listen to them, that's fine. I always like to kind of give them a listen to, but then again, I always like to listen to Nick's call of a game, Nick Curran, and Courtney Walton's obviously very, very good at color analysis work when she's on there. Sometimes she doesn't bother to do that because, being also the director of operations, Jeff Wallace has about 80,000 things for her to do, and she can't devote time to the broadcast. But she seems happy. I talked to her the other day. Loves what she's doing.
awesome.
So this one, just some of the 2s and 1s on it. The Cards are actually 2-1 on the road this season. How about that? Let's hope that they can keep that streak going. And Memphis in themselves, they're just a team that's let's be kind and call it a rebuilding season for them. I mean, that's fair enough. Now they were able to beat Mississippi Valley State. Woohoo! Big win there for them. They beat Sanford. Fred Sanford and his son Lamont came up to play him one day and lost. Unfortunately, Lamont had to go out and get some junk for Dad and had to leave the game. But no, but they did lose to our old buddy Sam Purcell over at Mississippi State. Excuse me.
Wrong M.
Yeah. They don't call them the University of Mississippi, by the way. I'm just throwing that in.
I would recommend not.
Yeah, because there is a University of Mississippi. Ball State kind of put it to them a little bit, unfortunately. Southeastern Louisiana and Murray State. How about that? Murray State beat Memphis State. Is it the University of Murray? I'm just curious. And,
They beat them. They beat them at home, like in Memphis. They lost those games to Southeastern Louisiana and Murray State at home.
They sure did. Yeah,
Yeah.
Southern Miss, took it over them. They're 2-8 overall. Okay, and they just recently lost to Tennessee at the FedEx Forum. and wasn't even close. 75-90, the thumping that was put on them by those fine people at the University of Tennessee U.
It's a
And
lot closer. That's a lot closer than the game that gave Sam Purcell company.
yeah, it is actually. Yeah, Sam kind of just unloosened the straps, as they say. What was it, 100-56?
Yeah, it was
Wow.
not kind.
So, but Sam's a good coach. He's built a nice program down there, or maybe it just signifies to us how bad that the University of Memphis is. In any event, you know, let's hope we do well. Let's hope we get a win here. We can certainly use a road win. It would be nice to get another one. We need to break this losing streak that we've been in lately here. Kind of shake off the bad memories of that and turn around and let's get a win on the road. These two teams actually haven't met, guys, in 10 years. All the way back to 2014
Wow.
was the last time that they played each other. And Amani Henderson, our old pal, the Big E, had 19 points in that game. Shoney Schimmel was still playing and had 18 for the Cards as they won 82-66 in that contest. So that was nice, and certainly we remember those two players very, very well. And Schimmel, of course, a 3-point specialist. She was 4 for 10 from outside the arc against them. So, do we have anybody who's actually taken 10 3-pointers in a game this year on this year's squad? I'd be hard pressed to pick anybody who has.
Let's
Trying
find
to
out.
think. Yeah, I don't think there has been, but Case is researching. And in any event, yeah, a trip for the Cards where they're going down there to, obviously see what they can do in this one. I don't, yeah, but I've said this before. I don't think they'll have any trouble. But then again, they've always turned around and made me seem like a bald-faced liar on that when they go into a contest. I just hope they go down there and play well and listen to what their coaches are telling them to do. Uh, Jeff, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this team is obviously, like we said, we've been struggling a little bit this year. We've been obviously ranked, but struggled when we played top teams, and it's probably stinging a little bit right now. So this would be a good chance to go, and I think be able to build a little bit on what they've been doing. Hopefully, without too much. I don't think it's going to be all that competitive, but a chance to kind of build and say, hey, this is what we need to do, and kind of get into the groove a little bit more as a team. Still trying to figure out how this team is going to fit together. I think you need to kind of get that happening, but I think they're still kind of in that mode where they're trying to figure out who's going to play what role people are going to play, and how they're going to do with it.
Case obviously last time out wasn't so good for the Cards. A big thumping. Does Walls take a look and tinker with this lineup a little bit? Do you think there's been a lot of social media outcry for him just to turn the rest of the season over to the freshmen? I'm not sure if I like that idea, but a lot of people are thinking that's the route to go. If you're Jeff Walls, what do you do right now?
Louisville needs a get right game. I'm not convinced that this season is not salvageable for a good year. Louisville has shown flashes. You look at the losses, and while some of them have been bad, most recently you got throttled at home by an NC State team that's, they're not the NC State team of old, but it's still
pretty good.
Yeah.
Still pretty good.
And you lost to UConn, which, okay, on the road.
Yeah.
Well, in the Barclays Center, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's a whole heck of a lot closer to Stores, Brooklyn is, than it is to Louisville. Lose to Kentucky on the road in overtime. You lose to UCLA to open the season in France, but you only lost by 7. The other one that stings is Oklahoma. That one really got away. That would have been their only win over a ranked team so far this season. But we still haven't seen, and I talked about it last week, we still haven't seen a complete game. We thought they could get one against Grambling, and they didn't. If there's any game that you could have that could be your get right game against an old rival that is not good on the road, coming off of a big loss, last non-conference game of the season. I mean, if there's a time to figure it out, it's now. And then you have the whole conference season ahead of you, minus one game. I don't think there's any indication from this team that says there's a reason to blow it up. Did they almost lose to South Florida? Yes. Did they win? Also, yes. Was it a lot closer than it should have been on the road at Colorado? Yes. But did they win? Yes. They're not losing games necessarily that they shouldn't. So yes, the big losses look ugly, and Louisville has not looked competitive in some of those games. But I think they can figure it out, and I don't necessarily know that it's a coaching thing. I don't know that it's I don't know that it's different lineups that aren't gelling. I mean, you look at the different good and bad stretches, and you throw a dart or throw 5 darts, I guess, at a wall full of our players' pictures, and those 5 players could be on the floor for fantastic or miserable basketball. So I think Louisville just lacks a leader, more or less. Olivia Cochran is an emotional leader, but she's not driving the way that Louisville is playing on the floor. It's hard for your team leaders to be not your primary ball handlers. You look at Louisville teams in the past that were very successful, and you see players like Angel McCautry, who was not your primary ball handler, but she was certainly more than capable. Asia Durr could play both guard positions. Dana Evans obviously was primary point guard. When you've got those players being your locker room and on-court leaders, it's a lot easier than when you've got locker room leaders that are in the paint and freshmen or recent transfers bringing the ball up that just haven't quite found that gelling like we talked about.
Yep, gelling seems to be a bit of a problem, and I don't know, Jeff. You take a look at it overall on this squad, and I mean, it was nice to see us kind of beat up on Grambling State, but even in the win over Grambling State, there were still a couple things there that you had some questions on, and the big deal here is that right after this one, the Cards have 8 days off.
Yep.
And then they've got to go to Boston College for a game on the 29th of December. Uh, if you're on this coaching staff, and obviously you're going to send your players home for a while and let them do the holiday thing with their parents, in most cases, obviously, I doubt that Elf goes back to Turkey, but you never know. Uh, well, will they let her back out of the country if she does return too? That's another thing we got to worry about. But it's what does Jeff Walls do here in these after this Memphis game with this 8 day stretch of no activity? Is it a busy time for him, or does he just kind of just
I suspect he'll take some time to be with his family as well and enjoy the holidays as well. But I do think, and particularly depending upon the outcome of this Memphis game, it'll be a question. It will be a charge to the players of, okay, when you come back, we start conference. Things really start to matter a lot more. When you come back, I want you to come back with your head on straight and ready to play, ready to follow the scouting report, and ready to not goof us around on the court and get out there and get to it. So I think that's going to be the big charge over that break, to say, okay, take some time, get your head straight, and come back, and we're going to go.
Just makes me kind of wonder what type of defections, if any, we'll have over this break. Occasionally, you get a player who goes home for Christmas break and says, "You know what? I'm going to go in another direction, coach. I'm not going to be returning to campus."
Yeah, that's
It'll be interesting.
pretty rare, but it does happen on occasion. But
It
yeah,
does happen. We'll see how it turns out with this team. Certainly, we're going to wish them the best. I'll be watching this afternoon on that big square box that sits by my window that I push a button on and I get channels all I want. And we'll see how we do down there in Elvis land. And uh, I hope they show at least one sighting of Elvis at this game. There are people who still dress up like Elvis and go to Memphis games. So, what would be our equivalent up here dressing up like Colonel Sanders, I guess?
or a horse,
I
like they did in volleyball. Or people and horses, but they had the horse motif going on for the line.
Yeah, yeah. They had Bettleman come out and blow the national call to the
Yeah.
post.
Which
Volley
sounds,
talk.
sounds terrible indoors.
Yeah, it's not as good.
It is not an indoor thing.
Yeah, people on Volley Talk were like, "Really, a bugler?" And I'm like, "Dude, you got to understand, this is
It's
the bugler for Churchill Downs. He's nigh on royalty in Louisville."
yeah. And I'll share one funny Bettleman story, and then we will move over to volleyball. This was a couple years ago when I was in a rather large parking lot of a major retailer and pulling in the park, and in the spot, it was double parking. You had a car in front of you, you pulled in behind the car, parked there, right? In the car in front of me, I saw this guy taking his clothes off, and I got very worried. And then all of a sudden, I saw him put this little red bonnet on, and he was putting on this red jacket. And then I got to look at the face and I'm like, oh my God, that's Bettleman.
Yeah,
He is actually changing clothes in his car to go in and do a gig.
yeah,
And I wasn't in a hurry to get to the store I was going to. I just sat there and watched. And he got fully dressed, came around, waved to me, opened his trunk, got his bugle out, and walked into the establishment where he was going to play his bugle. So how about
yeah.
that?
Kind of
His
cool.
He
son is.
doesn't.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just gonna say his
No,
son is
so
around my age, and he was in Scouts at the same time I was, and so actually one year we went to summer camp the same week. His son's troop and my troop went to summer camp the same week, and he played the reveille every morning to wake everybody up.
Nice.
oh boy,
It was
how about that?
actually pretty neat
Yeah.
to be
Yeah,
able to
I
say
would.
like, yeah, that one time had that really cool experience with the, like Jeff said, nigh on royalty.
Yeah.
Louisvillian.
If you've been to Churchill, you'll know his routine where he walks out of the little white building out in the infield, plays his stuff, and goes back into his little building in there. And I've had the chance to actually sit in that building during live racing and talk with him in between him blowing his bugle for stuff. And that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. I didn't turn it into a Cardinal Couple article, but he said, "Well, I like Louisville better than Kentucky, if that means anything." So I'm like, "Yeah, well, I wonder who's paying you for your appearances, huh?" But anyway, so best of luck to the Cards in Memphis. Go Elvis. And take it on over to volleyball, where the Cards in Pittsburgh were involved in a
Oh,
humongous battle.
sorry. One more wrap
Huge.
up. Sorry, one
Oh,
more.
sure, go ahead. Yeah.
The follow up on the 3-point question. Louisville has had one player attempt 10 threes in a game this season. It was
Really?
Taj Roberts in the opener against UCLA.
She would have been the one that I would have guessed, but yeah.
She was
Otherwise,
she was
I
4
would
of
have thought
10.
it might have been Arenas, but 4-10. Well, okay.
4 of 10, 8 of 19 from the floor, and scored 21 points in that 66-59 loss in Petty.
Well, see, she certainly got the skills to shoot from out there when she's on. So we'll see if she can find the shooting to her liking down in the Mid South Arena, where uh, the lighting in there isn't the best, but the court is a beautiful court. So let's hope that they can do well down there and win this game. But to volleyball, yes, Pitt and Louisville took to the court in the first of two. On the 19th, they don't list an official attendance on the stat sheet, but Jeff, I got to say, it was all 22,000 in there.
It was
The official attendance for the overall event. Now, keep in mind there were 2 matches played in the session, so.
Okay.
But the official attendance was 21,700 something.
So I was pretty close to 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
which I think they took it like in the third set of Louisville's match. So you get people that are, I think you
Yeah.
get people that were late coming in, but you aren't counting against people that have departed, or maybe they just count total.
I think maybe
The
I think
the total the total box, like the number of people that just came in.
total box plus an estimate of people that may not have been actually ticketed, like they're on pass lists and other stuff. I've seen that sausage get made in other venues, and it's not an exact science.
When I saw that number come out, I was actually a little bit surprised that it was not a sellout.
Yeah, it's pretty darn close to it though.
Yeah, it's very close. It's very close,
Yeah.
but I would have expected capacity. But
It is a record for NCAA postseason volleyball. It is also, I believe, a record for NCAA indoor volleyball, or maybe even any indoor volleyball. Have to put that qualification on it because Nebraska, of course.
the 94,000 or
Yeah,
whatever.
92. Yeah.
Yeah.
in a football
Didn't Penn
stadium.
State do it too? It wasn't 90, but I think they played one in Beaver
They may
Stadium.
have. Yeah, some other people have done some kind of meme games like that. But more proud to them. It's spectacle. It helps the sport.
The Cards were a 4-set winner in this one, although they did unfortunately drop the first set in 25-21 fashion, and you had to kind of wonder yourself, oh no, here we go again. But
Yeah.
they came back and won an exciting second set, an exciting third set, 25-23 and 29-27, just to give you an idea of how close those middle two sets were. And then in the fourth set, Louisville kind of got an early ride on things and ended up winning, going away 25-17 to move on to the championship game.
Yeah, it really kind of pushed on Pitt, particularly in that last set. And Pitt, I mean, they're a very good team. I don't want to take anything away from them. They're an extremely good team. They were consensus number 1 overall pick, just completely justifiably. But yeah, it kind of got pushed, and they just crumbled. It just kind of fell apart. Other than Babcock, who played her usual crazy good game, 33 kills or something like that.
She's unbelievable.
She really is.
I can't believe she's a sophomore. I hate it.
Yeah, I know. You'll get another 2 years of her. So yeah, she's an amazing player, and but otherwise, it really kind of pushed on it, and a couple other players had really good outings, but it just fell apart, and particularly in that fourth set.
Yeah, unfortunately, in that set, although it was a great set to watch, there was a very, very scary moment where the arena went quiet.
Early in that set.
When Anna DeBeer went down and basically lay there motionless for quite a while.
Yeah.
And had all kinds of horror thoughts running through one's mind in seeing that. But as it turned out, we got the subsequent updates from Case and others that were watching on TV and stuff, she was able to hobble into the tunnel with assistance and then came back out after a little bit to watch the team win that fourth set. And maybe that was the key in the fourth set, guys, where the players kind of grouped and gathered and said, okay, boss is gone. Let's win this one for boss, okay?
Yeah. My comment was we lost a weapon, but we gained motivation.
Yeah.
I think we already had it, but yeah.
When she went down, obviously your initial thought is that's not good. She's playing really well.
Yeah.
She's been critical in this match, but but when Louisville kind of immediately responded, they won a couple points, 2 or 3 points in a row right after it. And my concern, while still being for DeBeer and her condition going forward, I was immediately not worried about losing the match at all. We've seen this Louisville volleyball program, I should say, not necessarily under Danny Busby Kelly, but we've seen them respond to injuries like this in the specific match where the injury happens. You think back to Melanie McHenry,
Yeah.
to Beer herself when she's gone down before, and Louisville responds. And so when they won the next few points, still without her, I was like, yeah, they're winning. They're winning for her. We'll see what happens on Sunday, but Pitt, there was no chance. Louisville already had all the momentum from the way that third set ended. Then they get all the motivation. The crowd is behind them. The momentum just keeps building, and Pitt really just crumbled.
And even won the first 2 points of the set before Hannah went down. So I mean it was 2-0 when she tweaked her ankle, landed on the back of PK's foot. So yeah, they absolutely had all that momentum. And then you have let's give her the flowers that she deserves. You have Peyton Peterson come in and just plays out of her mind as a true freshman.
Just about to bring that up. Yes, Jeff.
Yeah.
Expand on the way PP came in and took over.
Yeah, came in a couple of aces, several great attack swings, including match point, winning the match on a little bit of an offset, but was able to get it down and just played out of her mind. Some phenomenal digs. She is a 6 rotation like Anna DeBeer is, so she came in and played all 6 rotations. So she was playing defense. And of course, Pitt says, "Hey, we're going to attack this true freshman, air quote reserve player." And yeah, she stood up to it. Just played out of her mind.
So now is when I'm gonna start my critique. So I not of Louisville, to be clear. So I think that Louisville showed that they were the more prepared and the better coached team in this matchup, because we'll start with Peyton Peterson. Dan Fisher says, let's go straight at Peyton Peterson. Hello, my guy, you're coming out of the third set where you should have won the third set, and Peyton Peterson was brought in specifically to defend and kept Louisville alive on some of those set points. Like, what are you thinking when you're like, I think we could attack her? It's like, Danny Busby Kelly just used her as an answer to you.
Yeah.
Like, hello. But even going back to that, I got 2 takeaways from how Louisville approached it. But one of them, like I said, was that I felt like TBK outcoached Fisher in that Louisville's been running the 6-2 kind of all season. We've talked about how Nyelis Cabello could be a 5-1 setter, and waited until Louisville or Pitt was really jamming Louisville up. Louisville didn't have a whole lot of answers in that first set. They did manage to bring it back closer, but it was 24-17 or whatever. It was looking kind of ugly in that first set. Louisville managed to bring it closer, but DBK responds. She's like, you know what? We need to get the middles working. It's not working in a 6-2. And so she switches to the 5-1. And Pitt really didn't have an answer.
Threw them off. Yeah.
And then they come out at a halftime and you're like, well, maybe they'll adjust. They didn't really seem to have adjusted. And when they did, DBK's like, okay, I'll just flip back. Just goes back to the 6-2 again. And you're like, yeah, this is, I'm enjoying this approach, because like I said, Pitt wasn't nearly as flexible. And it's not the first time we've seen them run the 5-1 with Cabello this season. They haven't done it very frequently, but they have done it before. And so it seemed like Pitt just was unaware of that concept.
It's the first time they did it for an extended period, with the exception of I think it was the Purdue match where we basically ran out of substitutions and we were kind of forced into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise
they ran out of subs in the Stanford bench too.
Oh, Stanford, not Purdue then. Okay, yeah. And it was one of the matches. I couldn't remember which one. But otherwise, it's only usually been like 1 or 2 rotations to let Sofia Maldonado Diaz serve. I think she's a better server than Ellie Glock is, or at least definitely has a very different serving style and approach. So it can kind of change it up that way. But they've let Naelis get up into the front row while Sophie's serving, and then do their double sub thing to do that. But yeah, this is the first time they, by choice, deliberately ran the 5-1 for an extended period of time, and it shook. It definitely shook Pitt, definitely. Because I guarantee you, Pitt was game planning on the idea that Louisville always runs a 6-2. So there's no need to have a blocker ready on the setter, because the setter's up there. They're not going to dump it because they're a back row player. So you don't allocate a blocker to be ready for that. You have your blockers ready for a middle hitter and pins. Then all of a sudden you got a setter in the front row who's got the ability to do a dump, which Nail has tried a few times, didn't work very well. But you have that threat there that they have.
They weren't
to
super well
respond to.
executed.
Yeah.
to be fair,
Yeah.
like they could have worked well.
They could have. Yeah,
the opportunity was there. If you looked at how Pitt was positioned, it's like, yeah. And Katie George even said it on the call. I don't know if you watched her replay, but Katie George was like, yeah, if you did a better one, that's a free point.
Yeah. She didn't get them down, but it forced Pitt to react to that and change the way they're playing. So absolutely.
One of the things that was quite kind of obvious to me is on a negative note, a PA announcer needs to take a full look at a name and pronounce it in its entirety. I don't know how many times I heard this guy go, and that's a kill from Maldonado.
Well, that is actually acceptable for her.
I don't think so.
Well,
I've talked to her about
two
it.
names.
It absolutely is. I've talked to her. It absolutely is. Those are both surnames for her. One is her mother's name, one surname. One is her father's surname.
It's a cultural thing for sure.
Totally acceptable by her to just say Maldonado.
Because I'm thinking back to the Miami match, and that the Miami match was when I first noticed it, and it was almost certainly like cultural thing. The Miami announcer, who was Hispanic
announcer there, yeah, color
was only saying Maldonado every time, and so I was like, that must be okay.
Yeah,
I was like, he's not doing it wrong. Yeah. That must be okay.
Yeah. I definitely that.
Wes Gomez. I'm just going to bring this up.
Hers is hyphenated.
Hers is hyphenated. Maldonado Diaz is not.
we're not going to give this, and I will give you the credit on this, Paul. In the pronunciation guide, it says them both. So
yeah,
that would imply you should say both.
I've just thrown my oars out of the boat, and I'm going to float to shore.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that you bring that up as something to be considered. I did in the spring directly ask Sophia how that went. Actually, no, it wasn't spring. It was at the red and black scrimmage. I directly asked her, I said, what's the deal with your name? How do you pronounce it? I've heard both things for using Maldonado versus Maldonado Diaz. What's the deal there? And she explained it to me. She said it's perfectly acceptable to just say Maldonado. So
it was in the post-game presser, and she was up there, of course, with Danny and also with the beer, and was just sitting there looking as pretty as a picture, and nobody was asking her anything.
She flies so under the radar.
Mike DeZarn, who is a actual photographer and shoots for our old buddy Charlie Springer on his website, walks across the aisle with his head down and says, "Somebody asked Sophia a question."
Yeah.
Somebody asked her a question. And so I raised my hand. I said, "I'll ask her something. I don't give a shit." Yeah. I put my hand up. Diener called on me. And the way he's calling on people is like, right side, third row.
Yeah.
So they know where to take the microphone. And so I got the microphone. And I said, "Sophia, you're in the Final Four. You're going to the Final Two. How does it feel?" She got this big grin on her face, and she just started babbling about how happy she was and how she had never experienced anything like this in her life, and she was so thankful to her teammates and yada yada yada. And I was hoping that she would expand a little bit about her previous career, but she did not.
Yeah, it might be a little sensitive. I could see why she might not. My understanding is she had not been to the NCAA tournament, like no appearances in the tournament at all with Arizona. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Came to Louisville wanting to compete in the tournament and wanting to compete with the possibility of a national championship, particularly with it
Yep.
being located here. So, yeah, she's been very, very excited about it. She's also just a very quiet person by nature.
She can tend to be that, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure she was thrilled to get a little bit of attention there. So yeah, she is. I firmly believe, and I've said this in a lot of different places, is that she is a very underappreciated player on this team. I think she's done amazing things and supported this team and advanced the program a lot in just the few months, honestly, that she's been here. She didn't get here until what, June, July?
It was
mean,
later into this.
Yeah, because she was playing for Mexico before that. So, she hasn't been with us that long. So
Here's some potential coincidence, irony, kismet. I don't know what you want to call it, right? So like you said, she hadn't played for a tournament team at Arizona. She's getting the opportunity with Louisville to play for the national championship this year. Arizona has won their first championship of any kind in program history this season after
NIBC.
winning the NIBC. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
So
Cool.
so basically, like, they win the NIT
Yeah.
of volleyball in
Right.
the season in the season that she is, getting that opportunity, playing for the championship for Louisville. So just kind of a funny twist of fate. Looking at her stat line, we haven't mentioned it. So she had 14 kills, which was tied for the top on Louisville. 3 players with 14 kills. You could guess them pretty easily.
Yeah.
Looking at the box score, I don't even know how you say who was Louisville's best player in this match, because everybody stepped up.
Yeah.
I mean,
It would be hard to pick one for sure.
Jabir, 14 kills, hit 263, 9 digs, 2 solo blocks,
Yeah.
a
Big
block
blocks
assist.
against Babcock too. Whew.
Right. Sophie, 14 kills, hit 355, best of the pin hitters. Had an ace, had an assisted block, had 4 digs. Looper, 14 kills, 214, had an ace, had a block assist, had 9 digs. PK, 7 kills, 4 total blocks. Kara, 9 kills, 6 total blocks.
Yeah,
everybody was fantastic. Elena Scott, number 2 on the ESPN top 10 plays with a pancake. Like, everybody was very, very good.
Peyton Peterson, 2 kills, 2 aces.
Right.
Gets in on a block, 4 digs, and she only played 2 sets,
Yeah.
and limitedly in one of them.
Yeah, I mean, and even Ellie Glock, her role was significantly reduced, but she didn't make mistakes.
They have a thing on the official stat sheet when they hand it out to us in the press conferences and such. At the very, very last column, they have this header called points.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to actually figure out how they determine the points, and maybe Jeff can fill us in on that a little bit.
I don't know the exact formula for it. It's based on obviously kills is a big part of it, but there's some fraction added for assists.
Oh, I think it's blocks.
And blocks, and it pulls in a few various.
I don't think you get any for assists because
maybe not.
Ellie Glock has no points and she had 9 assists and no errors.
That's possible. Yeah, like I said, I don't know the exact formula used for that one. So
kind of looks like it's just
barely in pain.
It looks like it's points scored. It's points scored. So kills plus aces plus blocks. So a solo block is worth 1 point. A block assist is worth a half a point.
Okay. So it'll end up having that weird situation.
And then you
subtract a triple block, you end up with 1.5 blocks out of that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I think errors are subtracted, maybe? Yeah. Errors are subtracted. So that is literally the points you contributed to the match.
Hannah DeBeer actually had the most points attributed to her under the points column at 16.5 but was closely followed in net by Charity Looper and also by Sofia Maldonado Diaz, who had 15.5. So those three. And as you could probably well figure, who are your leading kill artists? Apply as needed. Looper, Maldonado Diaz, and De Beer. So questions today going into the match, and I want to get into it just quickly before we go to final thoughts. As we get ready for the match tomorrow against Penn State, a team that swept Louisville earlier in the year, that came back to win a very exciting second match to get to the final game. Jeff, what say you about Penn State taking them on again?
I'm excited for it. Obviously, we lost against them, and we looked really bad against them when we played up at Penn State. But that is a really difficult venue to play in, and as an away team. And this is, I think, a much better team than what was playing there. We were really in a funk at that point. That was, that match and the Nebraska match. We both were in a pretty bad funk with. Um, I'm excited. I think this team's going to be. It adds to a little bit of, hey, we want to get some revenge on this team. And they're, Louisville has been playing free and loose. They were the lowest seeded team, overall seed, coming into this Final Four event over the weekend. So they're, they've got that mindset. They're playing with house money. They got nothing to lose. They're going to come out and they're just going to put on their best and go to town. And I'm excited for it. This may be, in my mind, one of the best chances yet for us to win a national championship. And we've had, 2 or 3 three Final Four appearances now. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Jeff will have the article tomorrow at Cardinal Couple, kind of previewing, I'm sure, the event. Maybe talking a little bit about the Tigers and Cardinals women's basketball game. But I'm sure a lot of your article tomorrow will be previewing this event. Case's article today was on Cardinal Couple, and you can take a look and see what he thinks about the Memphis Tigers. God, I wanted to say state there so bad. Anyway, that one goes on today at 5. And, I guess if you like volleyball, if you like basketball, this is your time of year. A lot of fun stuff going on right now. And we're going to certainly cover it for you as best we can. And so we invite you to come back and check with us. Every day at Cardinal Couple, your doctor recommends you read us 3 times a day. We're okay if you just come twice. But let's go ahead and do some final thoughts then, I suppose. Would be apropos right now. And we'll go ahead and let's go ahead and start it out with Case today.
Yeah, so I'll kind of use my final thought. I'll answer the same question that you asked, Jeff. I know it's a weird thing to say about playing a team that has just 2 losses this season, but I very much would rather played Penn State. So I like this matchup more. We talked about how they beat the tar out of Louisville earlier this year, but Louisville just was very out of sorts in that game. They didn't look like the Louisville volleyball that we've been watching recently. Like Jeff said, it's a very different team right now. Whereas Nebraska has already won 2 matches in the Yum Center this season. I swept Louisville in the Yum Center this season. Louisville really looked outmatched, not just like out of sorts. They kind of looked outmatched in that one. Penn State has lost 2 matches this year. They're on the road, both of them. And this one is, they're going to call it a neutral match, but this is a road game.
Yeah. Very much.
And they got swept in Pittsburgh by Pitt. They got swept in Madison by Wisconsin, and Louisville beat both of those teams in the Yum Center. And so I like this matchup. I'm very excited about it. Looking forward to, we didn't even mention the history that is being made and will be made tomorrow. For the first time, 2 women coaches are playing for the national championship. For the first time, a woman head coach will win the national championship. By default, for the first time, a former player who has a national championship will win a national championship as a coach. So, yeah, it's awesome, and it would be great if DBK was the one to make that history.
The chance of DBK could be heard in the KFC Yum Center on
Yep.
Thursday. It's become the new thing to chant. Uh, and I couldn't understand what they were saying at first. But then it became very clear to me when Mike DeBeer was shouting it at the top of his lungs right behind me. It was DBK. 3 letters. Yes.
It's Jeff DeBeer, but yeah, it's Jeff DeBeer, not Mike. But yeah,
Well, yeah, whatever. Yeah, Jeff
yeah,
DeBeer. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. It's
Sorry about that, Jeff. I was thinking Mike DeBeer for some reason. But, in any event, Jeff, final thoughts?
a couple of quick hits. I would real quick one on some of these. I would agree. Definitely going to be a home crowd for Louisville, particularly when you think of the number of Nebraska fans that'll probably be hanging around and will almost certainly be cheering heavily for Louisville as well.
Oh, gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, gee. The point stat is calculated as kills plus service aces plus solo blocks plus half of block assists. So
That's what I said.
it's pretty close. Yeah, I didn't know if you had service aces
Yeah.
in there, but I did find that officially. And lastly, shout out to somebody who doesn't get a lot of attention, but Kelsey Pennebaker, who is the director of sports medicine and women's health for UofL Athletics, and also fills the role of athletic trainer for the volleyball team. When Anna went down with that twisted ankle, rolled ankle, she was on it. She was out there. She was ready. Took care of the situation and handled it very well. So shout out to her, helping keep this team healthy in general. And I'm sure spending a lot of time with Anna over this weekend in treating and getting her hopefully ready to play tomorrow.
Okay, Paul, before you do yours, I want to correct myself. Or correct, correct a mistake from earlier. So Valeria Vasquez Gomez, not hyphenated.
Really?
So correct. So I think the difference could be though that she is Puerto Rican as opposed to Sofia Maldonado Diaz being Mexican. Just want to clarify that we corrected, said it was wrong because it was.
I thought it was hyphenated. Oh, okay.
It is not. It is not in the box score, and so I double checked their roster. It's not hyphenated on Pitt's roster either.
All I know is that she's been there for about 20 years.
Yeah, there is that.
6th year. She'll probably petition for a 7th.
She'll probably try to get a 7th year because she had to miss one game because of a hangnail. I don't know. I mean, which I guess could be important in volleyball if your thumb hurts. But
she is going pro. I don't remember where. PPF, I think.
Hopefully somewhere far away from Louisville.
Omaha Supernova is in the PPF.
That's great.
League, so yeah.
Send her out there and good luck to you.
Yeah.
Bye. I don't want to see you in a Pitt jersey ever again. But final thoughts out of me. I've got to talk a little bit about Thursday night because where we were sitting and where they had the media placed at, we were actually on the sidelines and not in the end zone, and were the row right above the first seat of the actual paid admission people. But I was able to watch and see how they transfer balls from one end of the court to the other. And that had me attention. Of course, I'm attention-oriented deficit anyway. But I kept watching them instead of the action on the court because these balls would end up at one end of the court or the other, and a guy would run one down to the other end and roll it down to the other side, and then they would roll one back to the other side. It was fun to watch, and they exchanged them after each set because the work that these guys had to do, and girls, I will admit, had to do, and just making sure balls got transferred to the right place. They were like they were running in a track meet. It was hilarious to watch. And so, if you have a child and you want to give them a great career, teach them how to fetch balls and take them to another location. You will probably be able to get hired immediately by the KFCM Center. And so in any event, 2 fun events, one today in Memphis, the other tomorrow in the KFCM Center. We invite you to tune into both. And if you can't get down to the KFCM Center, certainly watch on TV. Jeff will prep it for you. I'll recap it for you Monday. And we appreciate you listening today on the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast. And as usual, I will end with saying, go Cards.